Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. Posted 47 minutes ago. 47 minutes after the doctors told me Melissa's kidneys were failing. 47 minutes after I'd called him, begging him to come home, to say goodbye to the sister who used to save her Halloween candy just to share with him. Have you ever felt invisible to someone you raised? The champagne glass caught the Miami sunlight perfectly. My daughter's heart monitor flatlined for the third time that hour. Would you choose a party or a prayer? Have you ever felt invisible to someone you raised? While I sat in that sterile Tampa ICU, watching machines keep Melissa alive, my son Daniel was posting hashtags about living his best life. But what Karen discovered next changed everything. If watching family turn cold terrifies you, follow this channel. You'll see the warning signs I missed. I was clutching the same pink blanket Melissa had carried everywhere since she was 5. The fabric was worn thin from 23 years of love, just like my faith in family that Tuesday afternoon. Room 314 at Tampa General smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Machines beeped their mechanical prayers while my daughter fought for every breath. That's when my phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. My thumb moved without thinking, muscle memory from months of desperate scrolling, searching for any sign my son cared his sister was dying. There he was. Daniel. 32 years old, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Designer sunglasses reflecting the crystal blue waters off Miami Beach. A champagne flute raised toward the camera. The yacht behind him probably cost more than I made in 5 years as a teacher's aide. The caption read, "Living the dream. Miami sunsets hit different when you're winning. Hashtag blessed, hashtag yacht life, hashtag never settle." Posted 47 minutes ago. 47 minutes after the doctors told me Melissa's kidneys were failing. 47 minutes after I'd called him, begging him to come home, to say goodbye to the sister who used to save her Halloween candy just to share with him. My chest tightened. Not from grief this time. From something colder. Something that made my hands shake as I scrolled through the comments. Friends congratulating him. Strangers asking where the party was. Heart emojis and fire symbols filling the screen while his sister's heart struggled to keep beating 60 miles north. I set the phone face down on the plastic hospital chair. The same chair I'd been living in for 6 days. The same chair where I'd eaten stale sandwiches and pretended sleep was possible when your child might not see morning. The heart monitor's rhythm changed. Melissa's eyes fluttered open for the first time since Sunday. Hope flooded my chest until I heard her whisper. "Mom? Where's Danny?" I smoothed her hair back, the way I had when she was little and afraid of thunderstorms. He's taking care of some things, sweetheart. Rest now." She nodded and drifted back to sleep, trusting me completely. The same way she'd trusted her big brother to walk her to school every day until high school. The same way she defended him when neighbors whispered about his expensive tastes and empty bank account. That's when my phone rang. Not a text. Not a notification. An actual phone call from a number I didn't recognize. The area code was 561. Palm Beach. "Mrs. Patterson? This is Attorney Mitchell from Coastal Estate Planning. I'm calling regarding your late husband's trust documents. We need to discuss some urgent matters concerning your children's inheritance." The machines kept beeping. Melissa kept breathing. But something inside me went completely still. "I'm sorry, what documents?" "My husband didn't have a trust." "Ma'am, according to our records, your son Daniel contacted us yesterday about filing a competency claim against his sister. He's requesting immediate distribution of her share of the estate." Yesterday. While Melissa coded twice and I held her hand, praying she'd survive the night. Then my phone rang. A lawyer from Palm Beach with news about money I never knew existed. Drop a heart if you felt forgotten by family when you needed them most. The lawyer's voice was professional. The words were brutal. "Your son filed yesterday." I stepped into the hospital corridor, where the fluorescent lights hummed their constant tune and the smell of floor wax mixed with fear. My legs felt unsteady, like walking on a ship in rough water. "Mr. Mitchell, I need you to explain this slowly. My daughter has been unconscious for 6 days. What competency claim?" "Mrs. Patterson, your son retained our services to file emergency paperwork declaring his sister mentally unfit to manage financial affairs. He's citing her current medical condition as evidence she cannot make sound decisions regarding the estate your husband established." The walls felt like they were closing in. Behind me, machines beeped for someone else's child. Down the hall, a family celebrated a successful surgery. Here I was, learning my son had tried to steal from his dying sister. What estate? My husband was a Navy veteran. We lived paycheck to paycheck. Papers rustled on the other end of the line. "Ma'am, the documentation shows a trust fund established in 2009, funded by military death benefits and life insurance policies. Current value is approximately $340,000, split equally between your 2 children upon reaching age 30, with specific provisions for medical emergencies." My knees nearly buckled. Tom had never mentioned any trust. But then again, Tom had always handled the paperwork, the bills, the planning. He died of cancer 3 years ago, and I'd been too broken to look through everything properly. The concerning aspect, Mrs. Patterson, is the timeline. Your son contacted us 72 hours ago, stating his sister had been declared incompetent by medical staff. However, according to the hospital records we requested, she was admitted in stable condition and remained conscious until yesterday evening. 72 hours ago. Before Melissa collapsed at work. Before the ambulance ride. Before the ICU. Are you saying he filed this before she was even sick? I'm saying the dates don't align with his statements. Additionally, he's requesting expedited processing, claiming financial emergency on his part. I thought about the yacht photos. The champagne. The designer clothes he'd been wearing every time I'd seen him lately, even though he claimed his real estate business was struggling. "Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you something directly. Is what my son doing legal?" Filing competency claims requires specific medical documentation and witness statements. "Mrs. Patterson, I have to be honest, we haven't received any hospital record supporting his petition. Just his word that his sister is incapacitated. Filed yesterday." While Melissa coded twice, he was signing papers to erase her. Ever been blindsided by someone's greed? Share your story below. I hadn't opened those boxes since the funeral. Now they might save my daughter's life. The garage still smelled like Tom's aftershave, even 3 years later. Boxes lined the back wall like cardboard tombstones, each one labeled in his careful handwriting: insurance, military records, house papers. I'd avoided them because opening them meant accepting he was really gone. But now, with Daniel's lawyers circling like vultures, those boxes might be the only thing standing between Melissa and financial ruin. I pulled down the first box marked estate planning and nearly dropped it. It was heavier than expected, packed tight with manila folders and rubber-banded documents. Dust particles danced in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the garage door window as I settled cross-legged on the concrete floor, just like Melissa used to do when she was little and wanted to help Daddy organize. The first folder made my heart race. Last Will and Testament, Thomas Patterson, dated March 15, 2009. Inside, Tom's handwriting filled the margins of legal documents. Notes like, "Melissa gets house if Karen remarries," and "Daniel's spending habits, discuss with lawyer. This mistake destroys families daily. Subscribe so you recognize the setup before lawyers call." But it was the second folder that stopped me cold. Healthcare proxy and financial power of attorney, with 2 names listed as backup decision-makers if Tom became unable to manage affairs. The primary name, Melissa Patterson. The secondary, Karen Patterson. Daniel's name appeared nowhere. I rifled through more folders, my hands shaking now. Trust fund documentation contained copies of life insurance policies I'd forgotten existed. Military death benefits automatically deposited into an account I'd never seen statements for. And there, in Tom's careful script across the top of the trust agreement, Melissa, responsible one. Daniel, needs protection from himself. A loose piece of paper fell from between the pages. Tom's handwriting again, but this looked newer, like he'd added it later. Karen, if something happens to me and the kids fight over money, remember, I set this up to protect them both, but especially to protect Melissa from Daniel. He's got his mother's heart but his grandfather's gambling problem. The trust has safeguards. Find Attorney Harrison in St. Petersburg, he has copies of everything. My phone buzzed with a text from the hospital, Melissa asking for you. Vitals improving. I grabbed my keys and the folder, but something else caught my eye. An email printout dated just 2 weeks before Tom died. The subject line, concerns about Daniel's debts. The sender, Attorney Harrison. Tom had replied, keep the trust locked until age 30 for both kids. If either one tries to break it early, the other gets full control. I love my son, but I don't trust his judgment with money. At the bottom, a handwritten note, told Daniel about inheritance but not about the safeguards. Melissa doesn't know about any of it yet. We'll explain when she's ready. Melissa's name, clear as day. Daniel's name, nowhere to be found. What's the oldest important document you've kept? You might need it. She was 26 and worked for free. She became my daughter's lifeline. The Legal Aid Society of Central Florida occupied a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation office in Orlando. Nothing fancy, nothing intimidating. Just folding tables, mismatched chairs, and young lawyers who chose helping people over helping themselves to big paychecks. Maria Santos looked up from her laptop when I walked in, arms full of Tom's folders. She had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the sort of focused attention that made you believe someone finally cared about your problem. Mrs. Patterson? You sounded stressed on the phone. What can we do? I spread the documents across her desk like evidence at a crime scene. Death certificates, trust agreements, insurance policies, Tom's handwritten notes. Maria's eyebrows rose as she scanned each page. Your husband was thorough. These protections are ironclad. She picked up Tom's note about protecting Melissa from Daniel. This annotation shows clear intent. Your son can't claim ignorance about the trust structure. But can he still file that competency thing? Anyone can file anything, Mrs. Patterson. The question is whether it has merit. Maria pulled up something on her computer. Florida law requires specific medical documentation for competency challenges. Hospital records, psychiatric evaluations, multiple physician statements. Has your son provided any of these? The lawyer said they hadn't received hospital records. Because there aren't any that support his claim. Maria's fingers flew across the keyboard. Your daughter was admitted for kidney failure, not mental incapacity. The medical staff would have noted any cognitive issues. The fact that she's been asking about you and responding to treatment actually proves the opposite of what your son claims. My phone buzzed. Another Instagram notification. Daniel posting photos of expensive dinner somewhere in South Beach. The timestamp showed 30 minutes ago. Maria, is there anything we can do to stop this while Melissa recovers? Absolutely. We can file for a temporary restraining order freezing all estate distributions pending a full competency evaluation by court-appointed physicians. It'll cost your son money and time, and he'll have to prove his claims with real evidence. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. We'll also request an emergency review of his filing. The timeline discrepancies you mentioned are serious red flags. Courts don't like lawyers who bend facts to fit their clients' needs. How long does this take? Emergency motions get heard within 24 hours. We file today, get a hearing tomorrow morning. Maria looked up from her notes. Mrs. Patterson, your husband built a fortress around his children's inheritance. Your son is trying to break in with a plastic spoon. Emergency motion filed. 24 hours to respond, or lose everything. Have you ever had a stranger fight harder for you than family? The email timestamp didn't lie, 2:17 a.m., 3 days before Melissa collapsed. Back home from the legal aid office, I sat at Tom's old desk with my reading glasses and a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Maria had given me homework: find any communication between Daniel and his lawyer that might show planning or intent. I'd never been good with computers, but desperation makes you learn fast. Tom's laptop still sat in the corner, password protected until Melissa had helped me crack it last Christmas. "Mom, it's just your wedding anniversary," she'd laughed. Dad wasn't exactly creative with passwords. Now I was grateful for his predictable nature. I opened his email account, the one he'd used for business and legal matters. Most messages were spam or medical appointment reminders from before he died, but then I found a folder labeled Estate Planning, Private. My heart hammered as I clicked it open. Dozens of emails between Tom and Attorney Harrison spanning 2 years before Tom's death. The subject lines told a story. Daniel's gambling debts, concerns about spending patterns, trust modifications needed. But it was an email thread from just 6 months ago that made my blood run cold. The sender, Daniel Patterson. The recipient, Attorney Harrison. "Mr. Harrison, this is Tom Patterson's son Daniel. My father mentioned you handled some paperwork for the family. I'm hoping to get copies of any documents related to inheritance or financial planning. My sister has been having some health issues and I want to make sure everything is in order if something happens." Attorney Harrison's reply was professional but cautious. "Mr. Patterson, I'll need your father's written permission or a court order to release confidential documents. If you have concerns about your sister's health, I'd recommend she contact me directly." Daniel's response came at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. "My father passed away 3 years ago. My sister's condition is getting worse. Kidney problems, possible mental health issues affecting her judgment. I may need to take legal action to protect her interests. Can we schedule a consultation? Miss these digital clues, lose everything you built. Subscribe to stay protected." I grabbed my phone and checked the date of that email. 3 months before Melissa had any kidney symptoms. 6 weeks before she'd even mentioned feeling tired at work. How did Daniel know about kidney problems that hadn't happened yet? I kept scrolling. More emails between Daniel and various lawyers in Palm Beach and Miami. Shopping for someone who would file his papers without asking too many questions. Most had turned him away, but Attorney Mitchell had responded, "We can discuss options if you have medical documentation supporting your concerns." The final email in the chain was dated 5 days ago, the day before Melissa collapsed at the hospital, proceeding with competency filing. Sister hospitalized as predicted. Need expedited processing for financial hardship. As predicted. Like he'd known it was coming. I screenshot every email, my hands shaking. This wasn't grief or greed driving Daniel's actions. This was planning. Cold, calculated planning. The subject line read, "Accelerate timeline, window closing soon." Technology doesn't lie. What digital trail would expose your enemies? Melissa's eyes opened for the first time in 6 days. She whispered, "Where's Daniel?" I was back in my plastic chair, the one that had become my second home in the ICU. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor. Melissa looked fragile under the white hospital blankets, but her voice was stronger than it had been since Sunday. "Mom? You look tired. Have you been sleeping here?" I smoothed her hair back, the same auburn color she'd inherited from her father. "Just resting, sweetheart. The doctors say you're doing much better." "I feel better. Weird, but better. Like I've been asleep for weeks." She tried to sit up, then winced. "My back hurts. And my head feels fuzzy. The medications can do that. You've been through a lot." She nodded, then looked toward the door like she was expecting someone. "Has Danny been here? I thought I heard his voice yesterday." My chest tightened. Daniel hadn't set foot in this hospital since she'd been admitted. But I couldn't tell her that. Not while she was still recovering. Not while her brother was trying to steal her future from a lawyer's office in Palm Beach. He's been handling some paperwork, honey. Family business stuff. It wasn't entirely a lie. He was handling paperwork. Just not the kind that would help his sister. That's good. I know he worries about money since Dad died. Melissa closed her eyes for a moment. Mom, I had the strangest dreams while I was out. About Dad. He was trying to tell me something important, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. What kind of dreams? He kept pointing at this box, like he'd hidden something important and needed me to find it. And he kept saying Daniel's name, but not in a good way. More like, warning me about something. I felt the folder of documents sitting in my purse like it weighed 100 pounds. Tom trying to warn us from beyond the grave, just like in Melissa's dream. Dreams can be strange when you're on medication, sweetheart. Maybe. She squeezed my hand. But Mom, if something happens to me, promise me you'll make sure Danny's okay. He puts on this tough act, but he's scared about money. Dad used to worry about him. I wanted to tell her the truth. That Daniel wasn't scared about money, he was hungry for it. That while she lay unconscious, he'd been planning to take everything their father had left for her. Instead, I lied. He's handling some paperwork, honey. Rest now. Sometimes love means carrying the burden alone. Agree? Granted. One word that stopped a thief in his tracks. Maria called me at 8:23 a.m. from the courthouse steps. Her voice carried the satisfaction of someone who just won their first real victory. Mrs. Patterson, the judge reviewed our emergency filing and granted a temporary restraining order. All distributions from your husband's trust are frozen pending a full competency evaluation. I was sitting in the hospital cafeteria, picking at scrambled eggs that tasted like cardboard. Relief flooded through me so fast I had to sit down, even though I was already sitting. What does that mean exactly? It means your son can't touch a penny until a court-appointed psychiatrist examines your daughter and determines she's mentally competent to make financial decisions. Given that she's recovering well and showing no signs of cognitive impairment, this evaluation should be straightforward. How long does that take? 2 to 3 weeks, minimum. Maybe longer if your son's lawyer tries to drag it out. Maria's voice grew serious. Mrs. Patterson, there's something else. The judge was not happy about the timeline discrepancies in your son's filing. She's ordered Attorney Mitchell to appear next Friday to explain why he filed a competency claim without proper medical documentation. I thought about Mitchell's nervous voice when he'd first called me. How he'd seemed confused about the hospital records himself. Could Daniel get in trouble for this? Filing false documents with the court is perjury. If the judge finds that your son deliberately misrepresented his sister's condition, there could be criminal charges. At minimum, his lawyer could lose his license. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Mom, this is Danny. Call me. We need to talk about Melissa's situation. There are things you don't understand. For the first time in days, I felt something other than fear and exhaustion. I felt power. One legal move changed everything. Subscribe, you'll need these strategies someday. I showed Maria the text. He wants to talk. Don't. Not without me present. Everything he says now could be used as evidence if this goes to trial. She paused. Mrs. Patterson, your son just went from predator to prey. He knows the court order came from you. Will he be angry? Probably. But anger makes people careless. And careless people make mistakes. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Daniel's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. Daniel's Mercedes pulled into my driveway at midnight. Ever felt the moment power shifted back to you? Describe it. He didn't knock. He used his key like he still lived there. I heard the front door open from my bedroom upstairs, where I'd been lying awake since 10 p.m., knowing this moment would come. Daniel's footsteps echoed across the hardwood floor Tom had installed himself 15 years ago. Heavy steps. Angry steps. Mom. Where are you? We need to talk. I stayed upstairs for a moment longer, gathering courage from the folder of documents on my nightstand. Tom's careful planning. Attorney Harrison's emails. The restraining order that had arrived by courier that afternoon. When I finally came downstairs, Daniel was pacing in the living room like a caged animal. He'd changed from his yacht clothes into jeans and a polo shirt, but his face was flushed with rage and something else. Fear, maybe. Danny. It's late. Cut the crap, Mom. You filed papers against me? Your own son. He turned to face me, and for a moment I saw the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. But that boy was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I protected your sister's inheritance. The same way your father wanted me to. Melissa doesn't know anything about money. She's sick, Mom. She can't make decisions about hundreds of thousands of dollars while she's on medication and barely conscious. She's been awake and talking normally for 2 days now. The doctors say her recovery is remarkable. That's not what I heard. Really? When's the last time you talked to her doctors? Or visited her at all? Daniel's face went pale. We both knew the answer. I've been dealing with the legal stuff so you don't have to worry about it. Someone has to protect this family's interests. By filing papers claiming she's mentally incompetent? By lying to lawyers about her condition? I never lied about anything. I pulled the folder from behind my back and set it on the coffee table between us. These emails say otherwise. Daniel stared at the printouts like they were poisonous snakes. His jaw worked silently as he recognized his own words coming back to haunt him. You went through Dad's computer? Your father kept everything, Danny. Including the emails where you told Attorney Mitchell that Melissa had kidney problems and possible mental health issues 3 months before she got sick. How did you know she'd have kidney problems that hadn't happened yet? Daniel sat down hard on Tom's old recliner. For a minute, he looked like the scared kid I remembered instead of the predator he'd become. Mom, you don't understand. I owe people money. Serious people. The kind who don't wait for payment plans. Gambling debts? He nodded, unable to meet my eyes. It started small. Sports betting, poker games. But then I got in over my head, and these guys, they don't take no for an answer. So you decided to steal from your dying sister? I was going to pay her back. Once I got caught up, I'd make sure she got her share. I handed him the restraining order. His face went white as he read the court's language. Danny, you need to leave now. I handed him the restraining order. His face went white. The moment you stop being afraid of someone who used to control you? His Facebook post called me unstable. His lawyer called me brilliant. I woke up Thursday morning to 17 text messages from neighbors and friends, all asking the same question, Karen, are you okay? My coffee was still brewing when I opened Facebook and saw what Daniel had posted at 3 a.m. Asking for prayers and support during this difficult time. My sister is fighting serious health issues, and unfortunately, my mother has become confused and angry about legal matters she doesn't understand. She's filed court papers that could hurt Melissa's medical care and financial security. I love my mom, but grief and stress have affected her judgment. Please keep our family in your thoughts as we navigate this challenging situation. #FamilyFirst #Pray for healing. The post had 43 likes and dozens of comments from people who didn't know the whole story. Praying for your family, Daniel. Your poor mother must be so confused. You're such a good son for handling everything. My hands shook as I scrolled through the responses. Daniel was painting himself as the responsible son dealing with a confused old woman who didn't understand legal documents. Classic manipulation, make yourself the victim while destroying your opponent's credibility. But then my phone rang. Attorney Mitchell, the same lawyer who'd started this mess. Mrs. Patterson, I wanted to call personally to apologize for the confusion regarding your son's filing. Confusion? After reviewing the evidence your legal aid attorney provided, it's clear that your son misrepresented several key facts about his sister's condition and the timing of events. I've withdrawn from representing him, effective immediately. What does that mean? It means he needs new legal counsel, and any new lawyer will have to start from scratch with proper documentation. Meanwhile, your restraining order remains in effect. Mitchell paused. Mrs. Patterson, in 30 years of practice, I've rarely seen such thorough preparation from a family member protecting an estate. Your documentation is brilliant. I thought about Tom, somewhere beyond, probably smiling at his careful planning finally paying off. Mr. Mitchell, can I ask why you took Daniel's case in the first place? Honestly? He was persuasive, and competency cases are common when families face medical crises. But he never provided the hospital records or psychiatric evaluations required by law. I should have insisted on them before filing. Will this affect him legally? The court takes false filing seriously. At minimum, he'll face sanctions. If the judge determines he knowingly provided false information, it could become a criminal matter. After we hung up, I looked at Daniel's Facebook post again. Let him play the victim online. The court cared about facts, not social media sympathy. The hospital's social worker requested a family meeting. When someone tries to destroy your reputation, what's your move? She's completely lucid, the doctor said. Has been for weeks. Dr. Rodriguez looked tired as she led me and Maria into the hospital's family conference room. Thursday afternoon sunlight streamed through windows that needed cleaning, casting everything in a golden haze that felt too cheerful for the serious conversation ahead. Mrs. Patterson, your daughter is making an excellent recovery. Her kidney function has stabilized, and neurologically, she's completely normal. Alert, oriented, making appropriate decisions about her care. Maria leaned forward. Doctor, we're dealing with a legal situation where someone has claimed Melissa is mentally incompetent due to her hospitalization. Can you speak to that? Incompetent? Dr. Rodriguez frowned. That's medically inaccurate. Melissa suffered acute kidney failure, which we successfully treated with dialysis and medication. At no point has she shown signs of cognitive impairment, confusion, or inability to make rational decisions. Even when she was unconscious? She was sedated for medical procedures, not because of any mental incapacity. The moment we reduced her medications, she returned to normal cognitive function. She's been asking detailed questions about her treatment, making informed decisions about her care, and even helping other patients in the unit feel more comfortable. Maria took notes while I felt a weight lifting from my chest. Medical records don't lie like family can. Subscribe to learn what documents protect you. Dr. Rodriguez, if someone filed legal papers claiming Melissa couldn't manage her finances due to her condition, would that be accurate? Absolutely not. Yesterday, she reviewed and signed her own discharge paperwork, including financial responsibility forms. She asked intelligent questions about follow-up care costs and insurance coverage. Her judgment is completely intact. I thought about Daniel's emails, claiming Melissa had mental health issues affecting her judgment months before she'd gotten sick. How do you predict cognitive problems that never existed? Doctor, is there any chance her condition could have been predicted? Someone knowing she might get sick before symptoms appeared? Dr. Rodriguez looked puzzled. Kidney failure can be hereditary, but Melissa's case was acute. Likely caused by a combination of stress, dehydration, and an undiagnosed autoimmune response. It's not something anyone could have predicted weeks or months in advance. So if someone claimed they knew she'd have kidney problems before she showed symptoms, they'd either be lying or they caused the condition themselves. The doctor's expression grew serious. Mrs. Patterson, are you suggesting someone might have poisoned your daughter? The question hung in the air like smoke. I hadn't even considered that possibility, but now, I don't know what I'm suggesting. I just know my son seemed to know about her kidney problems before they existed. Maria and Dr. Rodriguez exchanged glances. Mrs. Patterson, the doctor said slowly, I think we need to run some additional tests. The neurologist added, she's asking about her inheritance. Medical professionals see through family lies. Share your experience. Melissa signed the affidavit from her hospital bed. Her handwriting was steadier than her brother's conscience. 3 weeks had passed since that first phone call from Attorney Mitchell. 3 weeks of legal battles, frozen assets, and Daniel's increasingly desperate attempts to paint me as a confused old woman who didn't understand business matters. But today, everything changed. Melissa sat propped up against pillows, her color finally returning to normal. The doctor said her kidney function had improved dramatically. More importantly, her mind was sharp as ever. Sharp enough to understand exactly what her brother had tried to do. Mom, read that part again about the timeline, she said, pointing to the legal documents spread across her hospital bed tray. It says here Daniel contacted the lawyer on September 15th, claiming you were already declared incompetent. But you didn't collapse at work until September 18th. Melissa's jaw tightened. He was planning this before I even got sick. According to these papers, yes. She stared at the ceiling for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was calm but deadly serious. Hand me that pen. The affidavit Maria had prepared was comprehensive. Melissa's statement, in her own words, describing her mental state, her awareness of family finances, and her complete competency to make legal decisions. But it was the final paragraph that made my heart swell with pride. I, Melissa Patterson, being of sound mind and body, hereby request a full investigation into my brother Daniel Patterson's financial activities over the past 2 years. I believe he has misrepresented his financial status to justify this fraudulent competency claim. I further request that all communications between Daniel Patterson and any legal representatives be subpoenaed as evidence of premeditated fraud. Melissa, honey, are you sure about this? He's still your brother. She looked at me with Tom's eyes. The same determined stare he'd get when someone tried to cheat him on a car repair or overcharge us at the grocery store. Mom, blood doesn't give someone the right to steal from you while you're fighting for your life. Dad trusted me with this inheritance for a reason. Daniel's had 3 years to get his act together since Dad died. Instead, he bought a Rolex and a motorcycle while you ate generic cereal to save money. I hadn't told her about the cereal. But somehow she'd noticed, the way daughters always do. Besides, she added, signing her name with careful strokes, I've been thinking about this for days. How did he even know about Dad's trust fund? You said you never knew it existed. The lawyer mentioned Daniel contacted them first. Maybe your dad told him years ago? Or maybe he went through Dad's papers after the funeral while we were grieving. Melissa handed me the signed affidavit. Remember how he insisted on helping us clean out Dad's office? He spent hours in there alone while you were making funeral arrangements. The memory hit me like a physical blow. Daniel volunteering to handle the paperwork, being so helpful during our darkest time. I'd been grateful. Now I felt sick. There's something else, Mom. The nurses told me Daniel came by twice while I was unconscious. He wasn't visiting me. He was asking questions about my medical records, my prognosis, whether I'd suffered any brain damage. Her counterclaim requested full investigation of Daniel's finances. Blood doesn't always make family. Who would fight beside you? 27 exhibits. Each one proof that Daniel knew exactly what he was doing. The conference room at Maria's law office felt like a war room. Documents covered every surface: bank statements, emails, phone records, medical files. Maria had worked 18-hour days for a week, building what she called an airtight case of calculated fraud. Mrs. Patterson, I need you to understand what we're looking at here, Maria said, organizing papers into neat stacks. This isn't sibling rivalry over money. This is premeditated financial abuse of a vulnerable family member. She picked up the first exhibit, bank statements showing Daniel's account activity. Look at these dates. September 10th, he made a $15,000 payment on his BMW. September 12th, he paid 3 months back rent on his Miami apartment. September 13, he contacted attorney Mitchell about the competency filing. He was broke, I whispered. Worse than broke. These credit card statements show he owes over $80,000 to various lenders. But here's the smoking gun. Maria pulled out a printed email. This is from Daniel to a private investigator, dated September 14. He hired someone to dig up medical information about Melissa's autoimmune condition. I read over her shoulder, need complete medical history on M. Patterson. Looking for any evidence of mental instability, depression, or cognitive issues that could support legal action. Willing to pay cash for hospital contacts. He was fishing for dirt on his own sister. It gets worse. Maria flipped to Exhibit 15. The private investigator reported back that Melissa's medical records showed no mental health issues, no cognitive problems, excellent job performance reviews at the hospital where she worked. Daniel's response was to hire the lawyer anyway and claim she was incompetent. My hands shook as I looked through more exhibits. Daniel's social media posts showing expensive dinners and shopping sprees, all while texting me about his financial struggles. Credit applications where he'd listed Melissa's inheritance as expected income to qualify for loans he couldn't afford. Maria, how did you get all this? Your daughter's counterclaim gave us subpoena power. Daniel's lawyer had to turn over all communications. His financial records came through court order. And the private investigator? He kept detailed records of everything Daniel asked him to do. She pulled out the final exhibit, a voicemail recording. Daniel left this message for his lawyer 3 days ago. I need you to hear it. Daniel's voice filled the room. Look, I don't care what the medical records say. That money should have been mine years ago. My dad always favored Melissa anyway. She's got her nursing job, she'll be fine. I'm the one drowning in debt here. Just find a way to make this work, okay? I'll pay you a bonus if you can get this settled before she's fully recovered and starts asking questions. The recording ended. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Maria, is this enough? Mrs. Patterson, this isn't just enough. This is a prosecutor's dream. Exhibit 28 was Daniel's own confession, recorded accidentally on voicemail. Evidence doesn't need to shout. It just needs to exist. Save everything. His lawyer withdrew from the case at 4:47 p.m. Daniel called at 4:52. I was sitting in Melissa's room, helping her with physical therapy exercises, when my phone rang. Daniel's name on the caller ID made my stomach clench, but I answered anyway. Mom? His voice sounded different. Smaller. None of the cocky confidence I'd heard for months. Hello, Daniel. I need to talk to you. Can we meet somewhere? Just you and me? Daniel, my lawyer advised me not to speak with you directly while the case is pending. There is no case anymore. I heard him take a shaky breath. Mitchell dropped me this afternoon. Said my situation was ethically complicated and he couldn't represent me anymore. Melissa looked up from her leg exercises, eyebrows raised. I put the call on speaker. What does that mean, Daniel? It means they heard the voicemail recording. It means they know I hired that private investigator. It means... His voice cracked. It means I screwed up everything, Mom. I messed up so bad. For 32 years, I'd been the one to comfort Daniel when his plans fell apart. When he got fired from jobs, when girlfriends left him, when his business ventures failed. The old me would have rushed to comfort him now. Instead, I stayed quiet. Mom, are you there? I'm here. I know you probably hate me right now. I know Melissa probably hates me too. But I need you to understand, I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was desperate. I owe so much money, and these people, they're not patient, you know? They don't care about family emergencies or sick sisters. So you decided to steal from your sick sister instead? It wasn't stealing. Dad left that money for both of us. I just needed my half early, and the trust wouldn't let me access it. I thought if I could prove Melissa couldn't handle financial decisions right now, I could get temporary control and pay everyone back before she even got better. Melissa shook her head in disgust. Daniel, do you hear yourself? You tried to have your sister declared mentally incompetent while she was fighting for her life, just to cover your gambling debts. It wasn't gambling, Mom. It was investments. Real estate deals that went bad. I'm not some degenerate. You hired someone to spy on Melissa's medical records. Silence on the other end. You celebrated on a yacht while she was on a ventilator. More silence. You asked for forgiveness. I'm asking for the house keys back. Mom, please. I hung up. Melissa reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, she whispered. He asked for forgiveness. I asked for the house keys back. Some bridges burn themselves. Ever refused an apology? Why? Melissa came home on a Tuesday. The estate was restored on Wednesday. The October morning was crisp, the kind of weather that makes you believe in fresh starts. Melissa walked slowly up the front porch steps, still weak but determined to be independent. She'd been in the hospital for 6 weeks total, and home had never looked so good. I'd spent the weekend cleaning, buying groceries, making sure everything was perfect for her return. But what made the day truly special wasn't the fresh flowers or the homemade soup simmering on the stove. It was the manila envelope waiting on the kitchen table. What's this? Melissa asked, settling into her favorite chair by the window. Court documents. Maria dropped them off this morning. Melissa opened the envelope and pulled out the official paperwork. Her eyes scanned the legal language, then widened. Mom, this says the trust fund has been fully restored to my control. Daniel's competency claim has been dismissed with prejudice. With what now? It means he can never file this kind of claim again. Ever. The court found his petition was frivolous and filed in bad faith. She kept reading. Oh my God, Mom. He has to pay all our legal fees. And there's a restraining order. He can't contact either of us for 6 months. I sat down across from her, feeling lighter than I had in months. Maria said the judge was particularly angry about Daniel's timing. Filing right before you got sick, then trying to rush everything through while you were unconscious. What about the money he owes? The credit cards and everything? That's his problem now. The trust is protected. He can't touch it, and his creditors can't either. Melissa folded the papers carefully, the same way her father used to fold important documents. Mom, I need to ask you something. Are you okay with me cutting Daniel out of our lives? I'd been thinking about this question for weeks. Daniel was my son. I'd carried him for 9 months, raised him for 18 years, worried about him every day since. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Love doesn't mean enabling someone to hurt the people you care about most. Melissa, your father wrote in his notes that he was protecting you from Daniel. I think he knew this day might come. But he's your son. And you're my daughter. The one who called me every Sunday after your father died. The one who helped me learn to pay bills online. The one who never once asked about inheritance money or what I planned to leave behind. I reached across and took her hand. Being family isn't about blood, honey. It's about who shows up when life gets hard. Outside, a moving truck pulled up across the street. New neighbors, starting fresh. I thought about Daniel, wherever he was, hopefully learning that actions have consequences. Then I thought about the quiet woman sitting across from me, who'd fought her way back from kidney failure with grace and strength. Besides, I added, your father's trust fund means you'll be fine financially. You can afford to be generous with people who deserve it and firm with people who don't. The final surprise was in Dad's last letter, one we'd never found. Home means who fights for you when you can't. Who's your home? Dad knew. Somehow, he knew this day would come. It was Melissa who found the letter, tucked behind a loose board in Dad's old workshop. She'd gone out there looking for his toolbox. She wanted to fix the squeaky porch step that had been driving us both crazy since she came home. "Mom, you need to see this," she called from the garage. I found her sitting on Dad's workbench, holding a sealed envelope marked, "For Karen and Melissa, open only if Daniel becomes a problem." The handwriting was definitely Tom's, but shaker than usual, like he'd written it during his final weeks. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in Tom's careful script. "My dear girls. If you're reading this, it means Daniel has done something that hurt our family's financial security. I pray I'm wrong, but a father knows his children's weaknesses as well as their strengths. Karen, you always saw the best in everyone, especially our son. You made excuses when he spent too much, borrowed too much, promised too much. I love you for that generous heart, but generosity without boundaries becomes enabling. Daniel has a sickness with money. Not the gambling kind, but the kind that makes a man believe he deserves things he hasn't earned. I've watched him for years, making grand plans with other people's resources, then walking away when reality hit. I kept hoping he'd outgrow it. By the time I got sick, I knew he wouldn't. That's why I set up the trust the way I did. Not to punish him, but to protect both my children from his impulses. Melissa, I knew you'd be responsible with inheritance. You've been saving money since you got your first job at 16. But more than that, I knew you'd take care of your mother if something happened to me. Daniel would have spent the money trying to impress people who don't matter, then come to you for help when it was gone. The trust prevents that cycle. Karen, if Daniel has challenged this trust or tried to claim Melissa is incompetent, know that I prepared for this possibility. Attorney Harrison in St. Pete has detailed records of Daniel's financial history, including debts he probably never told you about. The trust document includes protection clauses that will hold up in any court. But here's what I really want you both to understand: cutting Daniel off financially isn't abandoning him. It's giving him the chance to grow up. Some people need to hit rock bottom before they learn to climb. Melissa, you've always been my steady one. Use this money to build something good. Take care of your mother. Travel somewhere beautiful. Maybe go back to school if that nursing job gets too hard on your body. And Karen, my beautiful wife, stop feeling guilty. You raised 2 children with love and patience. One of them learned to be responsible with both. The other one needs to learn on his own now. The most important thing I learned in 25 years of marriage and 30 years of fatherhood is this: you can't love someone into making good choices. You can only love them enough to let them face the consequences of bad ones. I'll be watching over you both, proud as always. All my love, Tom. P.S. Karen, the workshop key opens more than just the tool shed. Check behind the paint cans. What would your letter to the future say? Write one line below.